Okay, I'm gonna give you a few pointers for sewing gussets onto bags. A gusset is basically this middle section that holds together the two main body pieces of a bag. Some bags have multiple gussets and give it kind of an accordion style. When I first started making bags, I really struggled with gussets. Usually with two things. One of them was getting the length of the gusset right so that when you matched it up to the edge that it's being sewn to, it matches up perfectly in the right length and you don't have any extra leather hanging off the edge. With some bag styles, you can get away with having extra because you can just trim it and then burnish it later. But sometimes you can't do that. Like if the gusset has a rolled edge with a stitch on it. The other thing I struggled with was the difficulty in sewing it. So I just want to give you a few pointers to help you out if you're in the same boat. The first one is to just cut and stitch till you're blue in the face, testing out different lengths and different leather types. I have this leather that I use sometimes when I'm testing out stuff that I'm not worried about wasting because I've found a bunch of it for really cheap at a local surplus store, and I don't feel bad about wasting it. You can always get some like craft foam or something that has a little bit of thickness to it that you can test out patterns. The more and more you test, the more comfortable you get with what you're doing, and then you can tackle the finished product with a lot more confidence. So my second tip would be to use the right weight of leather. I ruined a lot of decent bags in the beginning because I was attempting to sew really heavy weight bags, like 9 to 11 ounces on a machine, and it didn't pan out well. If you want to use heavier weight leather for the main body of the bag and the straps, then I think that's okay, but you have to make sure that you're able to use lighter weight leather for the gusset. So when I ordered this leather from American Leather Direct, it's golden tooling leather. I ordered one side that was 9 to 10 ounces and another side that was 6 to 7. So I used the 9 to 10 ounce for all of the straps and this base right here to give it a really beefy, heavy duty feel. And I could have even used it for this main body right here. But I didn't. I used the 6 to 7 ounce for this part. And then I was able to use the 6 to 7 ounce for the gusset. And just to take it even further, I used my bell skiver to skive down the edges just a little more and took it down to about 4 or 5 ounces. This would be an important tip. Make sure that the leather you're using for the gusset is light enough to bend around the corners without giving you any headaches. Okay, my third tip is the one that I learned from extensive testing, and that is that usually when I cut my gussets about 1 inch shorter than the edge of the piece that it's being sewn to, it matches up perfectly every time. So you can take a piece of thread or lace and wrap it around the edge and then measure the length of that to see how long that edge is. And then you want to measure your gusset and make sure that the full length of your gusset is at least 1 inch shorter. That's going to help you avoid a lot of the buckling and bunching up of the leather around the corners that usually happens. Okay, so keep that one in mind. Usually cut your gussets about 1 inch shorter than the edge that you're sewing it to. Okay, my next tip is to make sure you're using good contact cement. I've used barge cement that works really well and it's crazy strong. But I would recommend something water-based like this Aqualim 315 made by Renia, and I get it from District Leather Supply. It won't give you a crazy headache when you use it. It's not as toxic and it's still really strong. But however you apply it with a brush or a bottle or whatever, spatula, make sure that you're spreading it nice and evenly. You just want to make sure that you're putting a nice generous coat down on both pieces of leather that you're gluing together. And you want to let it dry for a few minutes so that it's fairly tacky and sticky when you touch it. And then you can put it together and use a hammer to tap it down and make sure it gets a really strong bond. This part is so important because you don't want to be sewing around one of the corners and have the piece slip on you or moving around. Fabric bags and canvas and things like that, you don't have to rely on glue so much. But with something this heavy and rigid, you really rely on the adhesive. Make sure that you have a good bond before you start sewing. If you're using an industrial sewing machine, you're gonna be so much better off using something with a cylinder arm because you wanna be able to drop the bag down at weird angles in order to get the needle in the right place. If you're working on a flatbed, it really limits you and hinders your ability to get the angles right. And then of course having a good harness stitcher with a speed reducer and a good brushless servo motor is really helpful because you can slow it way down, have a lot of extra torque, and just really take your time through the project and make sure that you're not poking a hole anywhere that you don't want to. All right, I think that's it for sewing gussets. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.